All right, welcome to this tutorial, quote unquote tutorial on how to make a horizontal timeline on Squarespace. The reason I say quote unquote is because I don't yet know how I'm going to pull this off. So this will be more of a, it's a little different than from my normal kind of tutorials. So we are going to figure it out together. We are going to run into obstacles and we're going to figure out solutions to those obstacles. So this can be a nice way to kind of learn some Squarespace development along the way. Okay. So indeed, I don't have, I have a broad idea, but not yet sure how I'm going to do it. I'm going to add a blank section here. I'm going to add a block. I'm going to start with the line block because what's a better way to make a horizontal timeline than the time block? How about we do it like this? Okay. So right off the bat, the only thing that is a consideration that I'm worried about is how I'm gonna you make the timeline, how I'm gonna do it on mobile. Okay, so I'm just gonna add a few text blocks. Let's add a date. I'm gonna turn this into monospace. Okay, I think that looks good. I don't want to turn this entirely vertical, but I think some kind of angle design could work nicely. I have seen those designs, and I think it's a nice combination of being able to fit more items, but still being able to read them. So let's add a heading. Let's use the heading 4 and some okay, that looks pretty good. Let's jump into the custom CSS and try to do something about this. So I'm gonna grab the block ID for that one, and let's see if we twist it a little bit, could that work? Like 45 degrees. So I'm gonna use the transform rotate and minus 45 degrees. Okay, doesn't look very good yet. Now the problem is that it obviously is taking a lot too much space. So right off the bat, what I'm thinking about is that for horizontal timeline, there is much bigger restriction for this element. So let's see if we can edit this, and we skip the heading. We will do the date also in the same format. Just for now, make it as small as possible. Okay, apparently we can't make this smaller for some reason. Okay, well, let's see. Okay, well, that is better. Let's say that it's gonna be right above the timeline. We use CSS to, so I think we need the transform origin. Now it's rotating from the center. I want it to rotate from the bottom. So transform origin, bottom. Could that work? Okay, I'm gonna have to Google this a little bit. I'm sure there's a transform origin type of thing. Okay, just give me a second. All right, moving on. So the syntax was a little bit wrong for the transform origin. I rarely use that. Okay, so this is now good enough. The spacings, we'll figure out them later. Maybe I wanna move the line to be just a little bit lower on the page. Not that much, but instead of the next one, maybe I will leave one kind of grid thing in between. Now I want there to be some kind of indicator that this is like a stop on the timeline. Actually, how about we duplicate this a few times? Okay, that's interesting. Okay, let's make it 4 and let's make a third one. Okay, and then I'm gonna apply it to, let's apply it to the section. So all the blocks in this section are affected. Okay, so any HTML block, for example. Let's see if this would work. Okay. Okay, that's better. That is better. Okay, so now all the HTML blocks, the text blocks, are affected. So this is already kind of starting to look like a timeline. So now I'll try to figure out how to make a stop. So I have two ideas, whether I'm gonna put a small circle here or I'm gonna put like a line that tries and connects it with this. So I'm gonna take a look at that. Give me a second. All right, so I created a pseudo element, just trying to sketch this out. So a before element, we can create kind of an extra element before or after any HTML element. So let's say the width, let's try 20 pixels. Okay, how about 30? It may be difficult to get this to match perfectly. Let's see if we would make a border. I'm not a fan of this design, but I just want to see how it looks like. Okay, add some padding, 6 pixels. Okay, yeah, not a fan of the too boxy design. I'm gonna skip that for now. Minus 50. Okay. All right, so I edited this a little bit so the date is gonna look nicer. I'm gonna see if I get rid of the column gap, if it's gonna be easier to align these. Okay. Let's make a couple more of these. So, okay. Okay, something like that. Maybe we could just fit 5 items. I would like there to be a bit more space. Okay, so I'm thinking whether it looked better if this would overlap and kind of perfectly match the line. However, that may be difficult if we use the pseudo element. So for that one, we might need a second code block, kind of like in my horizontal timeline plugin. But let's say that we would adjust this. I'm gonna create a variable for this so we can calculate it a little bit bigger. Timeline pseudo length. I'm just gonna call it something like that. 50 pixels, and then I'm gonna try it here. This is less calculation, needs this kind of weird format in Squarespace. Calculate. Okay. Something like that. And for the width, maybe maybe okay, let's see if this is now working. Yeah, okay. Yeah, just as intended. So probably a smarter way to do this, but a kind of quick calculation to adjust the margin or kind of the positioning and the length of it. Now there's too much text here, so this isn't looking good. Now it's looking kind of better. I'll try and think of a way to make it look a little bit more minimalist, because this is a little bit overwhelming in my opinion. Alright, I changed this into another monospace element, so I was able to make it a little bit smaller, and maybe the width, I'm not now liking the length of this element, whether it should be actually smaller like that. Okay, maybe there just needs to be a little bit less text for all of this, and maybe there should be a bit more space between this. I'll try that if it would make it look better. Okay, so we have managed to make something like a horizontal timeline. However, as expected, it's a lot more difficult than the vertical timeline. The problem is if we want these to match pixel perfectly, even if we adjust the size so it's kind of perfect, the responsiveness is gonna mess that up, as you can see. So with the angle, it's a lot more difficult to get them aligned in that way. Now, of course, the biggest problem with the horizontal timeline compared to a vertical timeline is that we have such limited space. And because most people use mobile devices, we anyway need to figure out a way to make this mobile friendly, which is going to mean a vertical timeline. So let me turn this into a vertical version for the mobile quickly. Okay, so I'm gonna add a media query max width 767 pixels. Let's try this out. Background is red. Okay, did I get it? Yes. Okay, so this is gonna be our mobile version. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do it the other way around, min width. Okay, and I'm actually gonna move this to our section, and then all of the okay, the rotation is what I want. Okay. Just a second. All right, so now I moved the 45-degree twist only for desktop sizes. So on desktop it's gonna be like this, and then on mobile they're gonna be like this. And now I'm gonna kind of quickly sketch a mobile version for us, something like that. Let's see the grid. Okay. So there is a little bit of a weird transition. Okay. Making this editing a little bit weird, but now we would next add a vertical timeline. I have another tutorial for that, so I'm just gonna copy the code from that one. Okay, something like that. It's not super pretty. The alignments between these are totally off, but I'm not gonna do a pixel perfect tweaking just for this tutorial. So I just added a code block that's gonna add our vertical line here. And now let's grab the ID for that one and hide that one. Actually, I'm gonna only hide it for the desktop sizes, and then the same thing for this one. I'm actually gonna okay, I think it's okay, something like that. And then let's see. Okay, with those couple of media queries, I think I'm gonna wrap this tutorial up. I think the kind of main idea of this little video was to demonstrate kind of the pros and cons of the horizontal timeline. And for me, I think there are more cons than pros, simply because the way our devices are built. Mobile devices have more space vertically than horizontally, and we kind of have an infinite amount of time vertically. So for that reason, if you're looking for a horizontal timeline plugin, then one of three things is probably going to happen. Either you're going to have a very limited number of timeline items, or you're going to have horizontal scrolling, which for the user experience is going to be a lot less pleasant than vertical scrolling, which is more intuitive, and we have more vertical space, so it also makes sense. And the third one, it's very likely or almost kind of certain that on mobile devices, which for a lot of my clients can be up to 80% of their traffic, the horizontal timeline will have to be a vertical timeline. And because you now already have a nice vertical timeline, then I'm not sure if it makes sense to turn it into a horizontal one for the desktop. So I have a blog post that I'll keep updating. I have some plugins. Some are coming up, some are already released, which enable you to create this lovely vertical timeline without any of these problems, including animations and kind of total control of the timeline, where you will have space for as many timeline items as you can think of. Also, the plugin currently selling for a really low price because it's in beta, will probably be a little bit more in the future. So make sure to check out the vertical timeline plugins and the blog post as well. Hopefully this brought some thoughts into the horizontal timelines. Would I ever use this for a client project? Probably not. I'm also not a fan of the kind of rotated text, because a lot of people might have conditions related to their eyesight, their vision. Not all of us have perfect vision, and this kind of requires me to twist my neck or turn my device in a weird way. It's not that nice to read, and there's definitely going to be a heavy character limit on the number of characters you can fit before they start overlapping. So I would definitely stick with the vertical ones. But hopefully these shared some kind of ideas on how you could possibly implement a horizontal timeline. Thanks for watching.